Welcome! I'm Johan Nilsson.
And I'm Lincoln Murphy. And this is Impact Weekly.
We're here to help you make your customers successful. Each week, we answer your most pressing customer success management questions by relying on our years of experience with companies around the world.
Let's get this going. Hello, welcome back to Impact Weekly. So we're back with another topic of this week. We're going into a hot one, I would say. It's about price increases. So this is the question. If upper and senior management has increased prices across the board for all products and services, what's the best course of action for the customer success manager and team to reduce the blow? Wow, yeah, price increases. That's something everybody loves to talk to the customer about, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, okay.
But I guess, these times when I think a lot of people are talking about inflation, of course, and I think price increases is probably on the table in a lot of companies. So I think it's a timely question to address. And probably something I would say most people working in customer success will one day or another run into having to talk about price increases with their customers. So from that point of view, I think it's a really good one to cover.
Absolutely, yeah.
But maybe we should, as we usually do, zoom out here a little bit. How does a price increase come about? I mean, inflation is one scenario, but it could be, of course, others as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, pricing is a very interesting topic. It's a very interesting discipline. It's very complicated. A lot of people try to simplify it, but I mean, in reality, in practice, it's quite challenging. And there are a lot of drivers of pricing changes. Pricing to a large extent is marketing. It's how you position your product. If you have a high price, there's just automatically a positioning of like, this is a premium product and versus something that's low price or free. A lot of that stuff is obviously going to be outside the scope of what a CSM on a daily basis needs to worry about. And I think when we're talking about price increases, we need to be very clear that at least the way that I'm understanding the question, and I think as it relates to something like inflation, where we're literally, maybe the CFO is like, hey, we need to increase prices 10%.
Yeah.
Like, this is not about getting a customer to buy more.
No.
Right? This is not about offering them more in return for higher revenue. This is literally just about we need to raise prices on what you're already paying for. So what you're paying $50 for, we're going to charge you $75.
Yeah.
Like that kind of thing. So that's the kind of conversation, talking about that from the CSM perspective, that is a much less fun conversation to have than something where we're talking about adding value. And I think we just need to make that distinction. This isn't about value pricing. This isn't about that kind of stuff, sales, upsells, expansion. This is about just a directive, probably from the board or through the CFO, that says we need to get our customers to pay us more.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's very easy to do in a spreadsheet, right?
Oh, yeah.
But
yeah. I mean, CFO can just say, we need to do this, but now it's on you, the CSM, to actually go make this happen. Yeah.
And that's kind of what I sense from the question here as well, that they kind of got this pushed down and now they are here sitting with it in their lap and, okay, how do we go about this, right? Mm-hmm. But that, I think we should also talk about, of course, now with inflation, I think a lot of people are doing this for the, whether or not they're actually having an increase in their cost side or not. A lot of people are doing this at the moment. So,
Yeah, I think that's. I mean, we just need to be clear. Like, you're exactly right. I mean, in physical products where there's lots of different players in the supply chain and that kind of thing, or if you have a business with a lot of human overhead, like maybe there are some legitimate pressures, but if you're a SaaS company, everything's in the cloud on other people's infrastructure. You have a relatively small team. This can have the appearance of a money grab, which is something you'll have to navigate as a CSM.
Yeah, and you have to face it. And most likely, and I've seen this many times as well, that maybe you kind of the customer will accept it now because they can't jump ship right now, but you will have made quite a quite a bad dent in the trust you have with the customer, and when they find the time and the opportunity to jump ship, they might do that later on. So it is a quite delicate matter to handle a price increase like this.
I mean that's what you just said is like I think the main thing to focus on here, which is short-term thinking versus, long-term strategic thinking. Short-term thinking is we need to increase prices 10%. Longer-term thinking is how can I make this customer successful so that at renewal, they double what they're paying us.
Yeah.
Right? Which is a lot more than 10%. But short-term thinking is let's just raise the prices across the board. And, we could talk about that all day. We could talk about all the strategy and all the reasons to do this or the reasons not to do that. But I think we do need to just really kind of hone in on, okay, as the CSM, when you're getting this directive, like, what do you do? And really, even as head of customer success, working with your CSMs, how do you make sure that your CSMs are set up for success, and not just being thrown out, to just kind of deal with this on their own and kind of struggle, and it's a challenge.
Definitely. And I think one point there is to make that is if you're head of CSM or if you're a CSM here or if you're in the leadership team, you need to have a clear logic behind this price increase. You need to have some rationale why you're doing it. If it's right now, maybe it's inflation, or whatever it can be. You need to have something that makes sense to this customer success manager, because they are going to be the one delivering the message to the customer. And I've seen this many times when you just do a price increase and you don't communicate it, or you don't have a good reasoning behind it, then the customer success manager will have to make that reasoning up when they discuss this or take this with the customer, and that can go really bad. So I think from a leadership point of view, you need to have a good you have to have some logic and reasoning behind why you're doing this, and that's going to make a lot of the difference for the CSMs when they need to bring this up with the customer.
Yeah, I mean, a CSM that is tasked with having this conversation with a customer who doesn't have any idea why it's happening, who may themselves think or know, this is just a money grab. This is just something, that's ultimately not customer positive.
Yeah.
It's going to be really hard for a CSM who's, has all the qualities that we want a CSM to have: empathy, some level of humanity, not just a sociopath. It's going to be very hard for them to have this conversation. And I always talk about how there aren't difficult conversations. There are just conversations. Some are less fun, but we really need to get away from this idea of difficult conversations, and we really need to get away from this idea that CSMs shouldn't be commercial. Of course they're commercial. We're in a commercial relationship with the customer, blah, blah, blah. But this is one of those conversations that if there's no logic, if there's no explanation for it, this is one of those conversations that's just difficult, and there's no real way to get around it. And we're going to give you some ideas on that will hopefully help you navigate it. But as a leader in the company, with the people that are on the front lines with your customers, the CSMs, you need to give them good logical reasons why this is happening so that they can just have that when they go to talk to their customers. Now, what's interesting, I think, is you really don't have to over explain it to the customer, especially now. So if you're listening to this and we're in an inflationary period, it is almost expected by this point. We're probably, I don't know, we're what, a year into a good inflationary period when we're recording this. And if you haven't raised prices yet, your customers are kind of probably at this point wondering why. Like, it's cool, but they're not gonna ask you to raise prices. But at this point, everybody's raising prices. If you're listening to this and inflation isn't an issue, then that's a whole different situation. But knowing that that this is possibly something that your customers are going to expect will soften that just automatically soften that blow. But you don't have to like over explain it. You don't have to have a really strong narrative. In fact, sometimes before we started recording, I was telling Johan a story about an email that I got from a vendor explaining their price increase. And it was like 3 or 4 paragraphs long, went into a lot of detail about why this was the right time to do this. And it just felt like they were trying to justify something. It felt like they were lying. Versus other vendors who, have just said prices are going up. And, I don't know that that's, just to say it as frankly as that is necessarily the right approach, but you don't have to sit there and over explain. I always say liars are the ones that talk a lot, but also podcast hosts. So, draw your own conclusions.
Exactly. No, but I think you need to have this logic, this reasoning behind that makes sense. And then the second part, as you talk about now, is to have how you deliver this message is really going to be key too. Are you just sending out an email? Are you writing 3-4 paragraphs? Or are you being more direct? And also, should you have a follow-up by phone? Empathy in this case is really key as well. So how we deliver the message is going to make a lot of difference as well. So
for sure. I mean, look, I think there's even a situation where, and again, this is probably outside the scope of what you can do as a CSM on like in your daily work. But, I think even in a situation of inflation and a need to increase prices, I still think you could come up with a way to add value. Not, you don't, it's like, we're going to raise prices, but here we're also giving you something else. We've done some training, or here's another resource for you, or something to kind of make up for it. I still think you could probably do that. Again, as a CSM, that's not necessarily something you can do, but we do have a few things that you can do. Yeah. Even though we've painted a pretty bleak picture here.
Yeah. No, but I think you're onto something there. I mean, okay, we have now this all across the board price increase that's going to happen. We have a good rationale behind. We have a good way to deliver the message. But then to add to that is to have something. What more? Can we do something more here? Can we give the customer some alternatives around this? Can we give some options? Can we add something? I think we need to. There's a lot can be won by doing more here as well, and opening up for some flexibility. Maybe the price increase will happen, but maybe we can work with the customer in some way. If we can do it in steps, if we can do it, I don't know. Maybe they will get. The price increase will happen, but they will get something from another plan or another add-on or whatever we have. I think that's also as the one asking the question to lower the blow here. Work with that. Look into that definitely.
Yeah, I mean, you take something that doesn't really have much overhead associated with it, And again, I know that some of this is going to be outside the scope of what you can do as a CSM, but this is something that you could communicate with your head of customer success, or just communicate internally. Is there an add-on that doesn't really have any additional overhead in terms of cost structure that we could give them, as well? Is there just anything else that we could provide? I just don't think you have to go into it with simply just raising the prices. But again, if that is the case, there's something I want you to really think about, and that is because this will be your potential, has the potential to be a difficult conversation, even though we try to get away from that. This is one of those situations. Remember this: that customers really don't like, or I will say that they hate three things: surprises, unknowns, and repeating themselves. Well, with a price increase, at least, you only invoke the first two, so that's a win. The repeating themselves aspect is probably not gonna be here, but certainly the surprises and the unknowns. If you just if they didn't expect this and all of a sudden it happens, that's a problem. So you want to look at ways to not invoke those two things, surprises or unknowns. So if you get the directive to rate, that prices, or to tell the customers that prices are going to be raised, don't hesitate to communicate that. Now, you might want to take a step back and prepare some of the things we'll talk about in a minute, but you want to tell them as soon as possible, because that will help soften the blow, like giving them as much lead time on this as possible. They are going to find out one way or the other. And if it comes from you, a trusted source, and it comes from you with as much lead time as possible, and you are really actively managing their expectations, and you're helping them understand, how to navigate this, that's going to go a long way in maintaining trust. If you don't want to have this difficult conversation, so you put it off, and then let's say at renewal it comes up and they weren't expecting that, or let's just say at some point, you get to the point where like you have to have communicated this to everybody, and you just you blast it out to your entire book of business, and like prices are going up tomorrow, and you just did it today. Like, that is not going to end well for anybody. So, try to get ahead of this as much as possible. So going back, to leadership, please give your CSMs as much of a heads up on this and as much lead time as possible, so that they're not scrambling at the last minute to try to communicate this to their customers, to your customers.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's a great point. And again, I think we should just, before we summarize this in some concrete actions, I mean, we are all for increasing the ACV, right, and increasing the book of business and the NRR, but just across the board price increase, maybe you have to do that, but it's from a strategic point of view, there's a lot of ways to grow in other ways that are not as short term but more long term. But that's a topic for another episode.
I really think that is something we should tackle. Sort of the distinction between raising prices and expansion revenue.
Yeah, exactly.
Because there really is. We need to look at those differently. So yeah,
definitely.
For sure.
And there's so much to be done there as well. When I mean, it's pricing as well, but it's pricing where you link it to the customer getting more out of your platform and your service. And I mean, that's what customer success is all about. So I'm looking forward to getting back to that one. But maybe we should just wrap it up with 3 concrete things, as we usually do for this team and this person asking the question here.
Yes, for sure.
So I think we talked about this, but it's all about preparation here. You need to have time, but you also need to sit down and brainstorm here. What can the potential objections be from customers when they get this message? and also brainstorm around what can we do here to soften the blow, to add more value, even if we increase prices here. To what can we do here? So you need to spend some time here brainstorming, basically, to prepare. And number two, we said it already, but be proactive. This is really one of those things. You don't want to wait till last minute. You don't want to delay things because it will go out and they might hear it from a friend or a colleague or someone else. So be on it straight away and flag to the customer as early as possible that this will be happening.
Yeah, I just have to, on that one, I mean, that is so huge. They need to hear it from you, and they need to hear it from you first. The worst thing that can happen, I think, in this scenario is that they come back to you and say, hey, I saw on Twitter or whatever that you guys are raising prices. What's up with that? Right? So that's a huge one. Be proactive. Yeah. And I'll just wrap it up with saying, I think the third one here would be focus on their goals. So as a CSM, I mean, you're here to help them be successful. Bring everything back to the value that they're getting, the value that they're going to get when they reach their goals. Look, a 10% price increase, that's still nothing compared to the value that they're going to get out of this. So it really should be a non-issue. So, bring it up, but then bring it back to how this stacks up against their goals. And that really, this is just a very little increase compared to the ROI that they're getting ultimately from their relationship with us. And then just kind of move on and start talking, again, focusing back on making them successful. So I think if you do all three of these things, I think you're going to be able to navigate this much more successfully than if you don't.
No, definitely. Great last point there. I think that's where we want to spend time as well. So great. Thanks everyone for listening in. Difficult conversation, or as close to that one we get, but something we have to face. So hopefully this helped, and see you all soon. Thanks. Hey, thanks for listening. Do you want to bring your customer success to the next level? Check out Impact Academy. We have training programs for customer success managers and for leaders in customer success.